Hi folks, me again. Going to do another review and try and keep this one as concise as I can. I do have a tendency to waffle on. But I want to talk about a book that I recently read and a series that I've been going back through, and there's a lot to cover. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to cover this author a few times, even though he probably doesn't need exposure. And I've been trying to keep the exposure low on massive authors because there's millions of other review sites out that will talk about and cover these authors that are well known, like Stephen King and Dean Koontz. So I'm going to cover some of their books, but I don't really need to because there's not much more I can say that other people haven't. The one I'm talking about at the moment is even bigger than these guys. His name's James Patterson. You might have heard of him. He's probably the most well-known author in the world for thriller fiction. He has over 450 million books sold since he started writing, and he's released, or at least written, over 500 novels, which is just an insane amount. Now, from my counting already, there are 16 books that he's got due for 2026 alone, and that's just at the moment. And part of the reason why he's so prolific is that he does a lot of JPA, so James Patterson and or associated with, and what he'll do is he'll take an upcoming writer, he offers them money, he gives them a basic synopsis and breakdown of a story. They write the bulk of the book. He then checks it and he releases it with his own name, knowing that it will get into stores and sell, along with their name on to try and boost their popularity. So it's a sort of win-win for him. And he's quite transparent about that. There's a lot of books that are James Patterson and you'll see the other author's name, and that's what they are. And I think most of them get 50 grand to release their books, and that's per book. It's not a bad deal at all. And it's designed so that it helps and encourages people who, if you want to release a book and you're struggling, if he gives you 50 grand and you get a book out, that's effectively for most people at least 2 years' wages. It's a good incentive to write. But I'm talking about a series that he's also done himself. You should probably be familiar with if you know anything about crime or thrillers, which are the Alex Cross series. Now, there's a very popular series currently, I think, on it's either on Amazon or Netflix, can't remember which, but there was a reboot of it, as well as the original movies with Morgan Freeman. We had Along Came a Spider, which was the second film, but the first book. And then Kiss the Girl was the original film, but the second book. And they're both cracking novels. But the one I'm talking about is the third one. Never been turned into a film before. I don't think it ever will, because from what I remember, James said in an interview that a lot of Hollywood wanted to take his book names, but wanted to change the stories, which is obviously not what an author wants. So Jack and Jill, all the early ones were based on nursery rhymes, or at least from nursery rhymes, is the story of Alex Cross, who has to deal with two separate killers. In fact, there's a lot more than two killers, but you've got a killer couple called Jack and Jill, whose identity is a secret throughout the course of the book, and they are killing big name people because they're planning to basically kill the president of America. And there's also another killer who is murdering children. And as it goes through the story, it becomes even deeper because there are, again, I'm not going to reveal too much about it because I don't want to reveal the story, but there's actually two other additional killers in this book as well. So there's five killers in total in this story, which is a lot to balance. And I think that James does it really, really well. Like his books, if you've read one book, you've read them all in terms of the structure. They're very fast paced. They have lots and lots of chapters, like over 100 chapters a book. Very, very short chapters, each one designed to end on a cliffhanger and keep you reading to the next one. And whilst they're quite formulaic in a sense, they are fast paced. They are good reads. And this one I think was particularly good. I like the twists and turns of his work, especially this period of his work at least. And I found Jack and Jill to have some particularly clever twists and turns. The identity of the last killer, I didn't get in them at all. The identity and reason for killing of the one that's targeting children, I thought was particularly clever. And there's lots of twists and turns here, as well as lots of action. And James himself, just being a very fast-paced writer of fiction. It's if you like Kiss the Girls and you like Along Came a Spider, there's no reason to think you wouldn't enjoy this. And whilst I don't know whether I think we will this year be up to book number 36 in the Alec Cross series. Um, Alex, sorry. I don't think I'm going to read all of them, but I am currently going through Pop Goes the Weasel. I've got Cat and Mouse to go through. I've got Cross Justice to go through. There's a few others. I'm going to take sort of like leaps throughout the story and go through there. But I personally really like these ones that I've read so far. And I think this one in particular, being the third book in the series, is probably going to hold up as well as the first two in terms of its story and its structure and the developments of the characters. I think the only thing about this that I'm not a huge fan of is in the first book, in Along Came a Spider, Alex Cross was sort of dealing with the fallout of his wife's murder, and in Kiss the Girls, he ends up in a brief relationship with one of the victims of Casanova, one of the killers, and in this, he develops feelings for somebody else. That in another book, he's then in a relationship with them and promising them marriage, and later on, he ends up well, it's just I won't go there, but it's just he seems to be very very much looking and needing some sort of love in almost every book, and it just reads a bit weird. Those parts of it I'm not a big fan of because it makes the character look desperate. It's like every woman he meets, he falls in love with and wants to marry, despite the fact that he's lost his wife. And I know it was a while ago, but it's really strange. But nonetheless, I like Alec. I like his mate Samson. He's a great character, and these are characters you get to know over the course of the book. And the books and the series. So I'd recommend this one to anyone who's interested in a good thriller. It's Jack and Jill. I think it was released in 1995 or 1996. It's book 3 in a 36 book series. At least it will be by the end of this year. And it gets a thumbs up.